I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi. My father was one of the original 5 founders of the seminary, so I was aware even in high school of the beginnings of RTS, and my father and the others praying about it in his law office. When I arrived in Charlotte in June of 1993, we had the rented building up on Monroe Road and a few tables and chairs and a couple of computers that I didn't know how to turn on or off, and about 20 part-time students that Gordon Reed had gathered. As we got started that June, there actually were 4 of us, me and Ann Guerin, Will Norton, and Bob Cara.
30 years. Can you believe it? Now, how was I hired? Well, I'm in the middle of finishing my comprehensives in my PhD program, New Testament, and I get this call, and they're like, well, it's going to be a new campus. And I remember him saying, it may not work. Therefore, yeah, you come here a couple years, you lose your job. I wanted to teach at RTS. This was like the dream job. They hired this Rick Canada gentleman. Meeting him was like, oh, okay, this is a first-class guy. I'm willing to throw my chips in with this startup campus.
We began to grow some, and one of the people that came by just check in to see if there was a job possibility here was a young lady named Polly Stone. We were sort of overwhelmed with registrants, so I called her very early one morning and woke her up and said, how soon can you get up here? She was really good and was loving being a part of this ministry here, and it sort of grew with us to becoming a very important person in our institution. As we grew and needed other faculty members, one of the significant early faculty members was Dick Belcher.
Well, as I look back over the past 30 years, I think what's really helped the development of the Charlotte campus are the faculty that we've added. At the beginning, we had a very small faculty. We had Doug Kelly, we had Frank Kick, Will Norton, Rod Culbertson, and then soon after that we added Don Fortson and King McMullen. We were a small faculty, but we were committed to make this work, and we had great camaraderie together.
My memories of the early years is how exciting it was to be here as a part of this new work. A lot of us were wearing different hats because we had a lot to keep going around here, and I was especially impressed with the Christian character of my new colleagues as I began.
In those early days here at RTS Charlotte, there were certainly limitations in our space and resources that were available, but amongst those students there was a great and infectious enthusiasm and energy. The students really helped us see the potential for what God could do in this place.
The beginnings were challenging and difficult in a sense, but at the same time the Lord's working in providence. I'm out there looking for students. We're getting a little bit on the map. And I mean, ultimately it is God's faithfulness, but He blessed us with so many great faculty.
Well, I think that students and the churches whom those students will serve want somebody to believe in absolute truth, and that you find complete truth in the Holy Scriptures. More people than you would think are very glad to hear somebody affirm that you can know the truth, and RTS Charlotte has continued to do that, unless they've changed in the last few days, which I seriously doubt they have.
You know, it has been my blessing to have been personally a part of the story of RTS Charlotte at the very beginning. I was asked if I would come to Charlotte and teach on behalf of Dr. Doug Kelly one weekend, and I came and I filled in. And I got to know Rick in those days. I tell you, one of the things that impressed me about him, he was the vice president of a seminary. Here I was, a young professor, and I saw him going around the offices of the Monroe Road campus emptying the trash. And I thought, now there is a humble, godly man that the Lord has put over this work in Charlotte. And of course, the Lord greatly blessed Rick's leadership of RTS Charlotte, and it grew and it grew and it grew.
As the Charlotte campus developed, it was key as who we hired as faculty. Now, we had a great concern for the church. We hired John Oliver as a preaching professor, but we are also an academic institution, and so we hired Mike Kruger, John Curd, and James Anderson, who were scholars in their field, but also had a commitment to the church and to the truth of the Word of God.
The men who've gone to pastor, they seemed to have listened in class, and I enjoyed interaction with the students. They were individuals that I was getting to know and enjoy, and glad to be able to instruct them and bring them along in their preparation.
That was a primary reason that I wanted to go to Charlotte, because they were training a lot of men for the gospel ministry, and the church really needs good men in the pulpit. The faculty stay at RTS Charlotte for a long time. I was there for 14 years, and I felt, even after 14 years, like I was a rookie.
We did have some NFL players come study at RTS Charlotte. How that came about really was with Frank Wright. They ended up changing my title to chancellor, and we'd come to see the need for having a real president on each campus. Frank, he already was really a committed Christian and growing and studying, and I needed, real leadership on each campus.
I had a passion for the seminary and what the seminary was doing, and I believed in what we were doing. What I remember during the 3 years that I served as president was, just drawing strength from the people on that campus, the professors, the administrative staff, and really becoming a team, and us helping each other fulfill the mission of what we were called to do.
RTS has a clear, focused mission, and we've stuck to that mission. As our documents say, that the mission of Reformed Theological Seminary is to serve the church by preparing its leaders based upon the authority of the inerrant Word of God and committed to the Reformed faith. That is our mission. We've, by the grace of God, stuck to it, and I think that's a large part of why we are still here and flourishing today.
Of course, the beautiful move to this lovely campus here in a wonderful part of Charlotte is a provision of God to us. You may not know this, but Mike Kruger and Bob Cara sat me down when I was a pastor and said, hey, we'd really like you to think about becoming the president of RTS Charlotte. Well, I turned them down, but Mike Kruger became the president of RTS Charlotte, a much better choice than me to have Mike as the leader of RTS Charlotte.
I can still remember how it all started for me. RTS Charlotte was sort of my dream job because I'm from North Carolina. I did my undergraduate at UNC Chapel Hill. I was invited to come back in 2001 as a visiting professor to be there teaching classes while Bob Cara was on sabbatical. And it was a great year. I call it my year-long job interview.
We thought we were going to have the money to hire him, but then at the end, it looked like, we may have to take the money back. As the economy wasn't doing as well at that time.
As I was looking for another job, and this was late in the spring, I remember having a voice message on my phone that was from Rick. And literally, Rick called me up and said, Mike, it's Rick, don't take a job, something's come up.
And that was the start of Dr. Kruger being here, and like most people, once he got here, he hasn't left.
And that was 2002, and I've been here ever since. Just blessed to be part of this RTS Charlotte community for so many years.
Continuing the trend of professors who are committed to the Word of God, we hired Blair Smith, Kevin DeYoung, and Will Ross. And then we added a biblical counseling department, and we hired Jim Neuheiser and Nate Brooks. The reason that Charlotte has prospered is because we've had a firm commitment to the truth of the Word of God, and we've hired faculty who've had that same strong commitment.
I believe that the hand of God has been on the seminary to protect it, to sustain it, to move it forward. It's funny, I say this now as a football coach, that it's about the people, and I think that's what RTS Charlotte has done so well.
I love the faculty at RTS Charlotte. I love the students here. They're eager, they're godly, they're consecrated, they're smart. They come from all over the place. It's just a joy for me to see what the Lord has done over the last 30 years at Reformed Theological Seminary in Charlotte.
It's remarkable to me to think that RTS Charlotte has been around 30 years now. In 2022, we get to celebrate our 30th anniversary, and I can't be more excited to have been a part of this ministry. And I think what you have here is just this warm environment that combines the two things we always want, which is a gracious, kind spirit with gentleness, and at the same time a conviction that goes deep about our belief in the Bible and Reformed theology. And honestly, you just don't get that in a lot of places. And I think by God's grace, we've been able to do that here. And I think that's attracted faculty and students and is part of the secret for RTS over the last 30 years.